morning, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Film Freaks. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody. Sadly, Paul will not be joining us today, mainly because he is not a Star Wars fan. I think he likes Empire Strikes Back a little bit or something. I don't know. I can't speak for him, but I know when I approached him about this, he said he had no interest in doing this. So I was like, okay. But we have two guests who are sort of like they do like the original Star Wars. First up is John Ward. How you doing, John?
I'm fine. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, is this your first time on Film Freaks?
Might be.
It might be. I think it is. Well, welcome. Film Freaks.
My cherry has been busted now. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you'll be on other ones than when we do Zoom. We've been doing a lot more in the studio, so it's been just a lot more of me and Paul this season. So, but yeah, we love when we can have episodes on Zoom. We'll try to get those because we want other guests as well. And we also have Alfred Crane, who this isn't his first time. Alfred was actually on our first episode and a few others in last season, including Jaws. And I know you were in a couple other ones.
Fog is the Fog one.
The Fog was the first one we did.
Yes.
And then you were also in, were you in Chasing Amy or no?
I don't think I was.
You weren't in Chasing Amy. Okay. But there's a bunch of them that we've done with you. I know you're probably also in what was the Road Warrior one? Were you in the Road Warrior one?
I wish.
Oh, dang, sorry. Should have invited you out for that one. Did not know that. But maybe when we do Mad Max or something, we'll invite you back.
Okay.
But anyway, so welcome, guys. This is awesome. We're going to be talking about the 1977 classic, and I say classic, like, I don't know. It's a film that I feel like really like kick-started a whole generation of films,
Yes. Well, and filmmakers. A lot of people saw that film and said, I want to make movies when they might have wanted to be doctors or lawyers.
Exactly. And also merchandising, like this hat.
Merchandising.
Glad you brought that up because I got my Star Wars mug here.
I gotta get a Star Wars mug. I only have like Jason mugs and stuff. So sorry.
Yeah, I want to get all three. Maybe the prequels. Definitely not this shit.
That's what I'm gonna get you for a present. I'm gonna get you a mug of.
Surprisingly, I would keep it. I would keep it. But
and then I thought you would have smashed it, like happily, just want to, a good way to get out your anger.
Well, let me say this because, and I'll get this out fast. It's a quick story. My relation to Star Wars I think is interesting because I saw the film when I was like 10 or 11. It changed my life. I wanted to be a cop. My grandfather was a cop and I wanted to follow in his footsteps. And I saw Star Wars, Jaws, Close Encounters, and went, that's it. I want to make films. I want to somehow be part of the film industry. And then when the prequels came out, I lived right next door to George Lucas. So he lived in San Anselmo. This is Northern California, up in Marin County, which is basically Lucas country. And I worked at a video store called Broadway Video, and everybody from Lucasfilm came in. We had Lucas come in. I used to talk to him all the time. Ben Burt, Dennis Mirren, all these guys came in. Barry Levinson would come in. Sean Penn, Robin Wright Penn, when they were married at the time, came in. Jack Nicholson came in once. Huey Lewis, Dennis Quaid. We had all these people because we were like the independent video store to go to. So I used to talk to these guys all the time. And Ben Burt, who did sound for a lot of, he's still doing sound to this day on Lucas's stuff. Told me stories of Spielberg and things like that. And I also used to work at Barnes and Noble, and they would come in from time to time, and I'd have them sign like the Star Wars books and stuff, like if they worked on something. So my history with Star Wars and George Lucas, because literally when I say I lived next door to George Lucas, I was right across the street from him. And you would think he would live in like this big mansion, all secured. And no, he was right across the street from an apartment complex that I could look out my front window and see him walking around his deck, walking around the front of his house. And this is right when like Phantom Menace came out. So I think I lived there or moved in probably about a year before, and could just see him walking all around, and I'd be looking at him doing, this for the for the prequels. You ruined my childhood type of thing. Now I think differently about the prequels thanks to these movies. But yeah, so I've been to Skywalker Ranch. I used to have like a green baseball cap that said Lucasfilm. I have a mug that says Skywalker Ranch on it. I was there the day that they were doing sound for, what is it, Autumn in New York, I think is the film with Richard Gere. And I had lunch there. We got to walk around and meet some of the people. So it's Marin County is great if you want to meet people like that from Lucasfilm. Now they're in San Francisco, but they used to be up in, ironically, Lucas Valley, which has nothing to do with him. It just happened to be named that. But so I've had a huge thing with Lucasfilm, which is why I have such a problem with Disney and Kathleen Kennedy and the new films and all that stuff, is because it's been a part of my life since I was like 10 or 11.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Alfred, tell us your Star Wars story.
Basically, we were living in Germany in 1977. I was like 5. My dad went on a business trip to Belgium, and he comes back, and I come home, and I got 2 unopened action figures on my bed. It was a Stormtrooper and C-3PO. And I was like, whoa, Dad, what are these? He goes, they're characters in this new movie we're going to see this weekend. And I was like, what? And I have no idea what they were. And then we go to the movie. We went to this drive-in near Ramstein, Germany. And we're going, holy cow, this is awesome. And just, I'd never seen anything like that before. And being 5, though, but it was so overwhelming. It was amazing. But I drank too much water or soda because I kept having to go to the bathroom for the last half hour of the movie. And so, but luckily I saw it so many times since that
it's made up for it.
That I got to see it. And my dad, when he saw it in Belgium, he had to time the showings because one showing was in Walloon and French, another one was in Belgian with English subtitles. It was just amazing because he had to make sure they got the right one to watch with a language you could understand. But he said it was an amazing thing. So that changed my life. And Star Wars was a huge part of my life. And until this day, like when the prequels came out, I was a little disappointed, but I liked where they were heading with them. And then the following 3 just I agree with you. Once the Disney Empire took over, I was like, I thought I had such high hopes. I was like, man, this could possibly be some good stuff. And then it's like, wah, wah, wah. But I'm not going to let it taint my childhood with Star Wars, because it was one of the biggest things in my life. And my friends too. It's like everyone had Star Wars figures. It was great.
That's awesome. Sadly, I guess because I grew up a little after. I mean, I was born in 82, which means I'm trying to think, was Return of the Jedi 80?
That's Return.
81?
Yeah, you were born around the time of Jedi. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was born around the time of Jedi, and there was really, like, after that, there was like kind of a whole, like a lull for Star Wars,
Oh yeah, like
so
20 years.
Yeah. So I mean, there were books and there were other things, and they were on VHS. What was that?
The Ewok Adventures.
Ewok Adventures, yeah.
The Star Wars Holiday Special. Don't forget those.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Two Ewok movies. Yeah.
Which we had to watch for Patreon only. The Star Wars Holiday Special. Paul made me watch that, and good God, let's not talk about that.
Talk about what?
Talk about fucking up your childhood.
Star Wars Holiday Special, still better than these.
True.
Yeah.
I would take was it Beatrice Arthur singing over those
animated Boba Fett, and the first time we got to see Boba Fett, so
that's true.
I'll give them that.
Which I don't think they called them Boba Fett in it, but I don't even know if they had a name for him necessarily at that time. But they had him in it, which was like shocking when I saw it. But yeah, I kind of didn't grow up in the time period that you guys did, so I didn't really have that thing. I remember one of my friends was huge into Star Wars. He had all the action figures and everything. We went to the circus and bought those little fake lightsabers, that like lasted 2 seconds before they just didn't work anymore. It was crap, which really made me sad because I was like, you could buy them at the Dollar Tree now. The same ones, or whatever.
They're called light swords because they don't have the rights to lightsaber.
That's true. Yeah,
our lightsaber when I was a kid, it was a flashlight.
Yeah,
that's all it was a flashlight, and you screwed the tube onto the front of the flashlight. And so the flashlight was like, the tube was like this, but the minute you hit it with somebody else's, it bent. So then it was like this, and it was done. Like all you had to do was hit it too hard, and it just bent right over. And you're like, oh fuck, no, okay, well there goes my lightsaber. I guess we could keep the flashlight.
But I always remembered I loved Star Wars a lot better than like Star Trek. And I feel like there are like sort of like people who are into Star Wars or people that are into Star Trek. And then sometimes there's crossovers, but most of the time, most people like just one or the other because they're kind of both, kind of different films in series in my opinion. And I always feel like Star Trek just had so much jargon that I just don't understand it always turned me off, like I don't want to learn how to speak Klingon, that kind of stuff, yeah. Sorry. I'm not that big of a nerd, I guess. I didn't grow up like that.
You haven't seen Star Wars until you've seen it in the original Klingon.
That's right.
Now I got to watch Star Wars in Klingon. There you go.
So I guess you're not going to have a Klingon wedding when you get married one day.
Nope. not
maybe like a Wookiee wedding.
Oh God, please don't wish that on me. Like, please don't have me get a wife that likes Star Wars this much that makes me, that's her dream wedding, but I'm not like, I don't know. I'm into Star Wars, but I was never that into Star Wars as much as I am a little bit more, now, like I'm getting more into it. I'm buying the Legends books. I'm checking out more of the culture of it, and things just because it interests me as an adult of like what he did. And it all stemmed from this first movie, like when he created the Star Wars, was the Legend of Luke Starkiller, or whatever, he was not thinking that this would evolve into this huge of a phenomenon. Now he did say he had ideas for sequels, and that was one of the reasons in his contract, he wanted to make sure he had the rights to the sequels, because he knew that like with Hollywood, things could get messed up and, it couldn't get marketed well enough and he'd have to do all the marketing, and have to make the stuff.
I don't know how much I believe George Lucas. I think he's taken a lot of the mythos that the fans have made up and then made it real because I did rewatch Star Wars, and this is the version that I have. I don't know where it came from. Actually, the first three films, I don't know where they came from. They're the like original versions. Like there is no New Hope. There is no alterations. These are the original cuts of the movie. Luke even yells, Carrie at the end of the film instead of, when they they ADR'd it where he says Leia. And with rewatching this, I don't believe that Lucas had a ton of ideas because he wouldn't make Luke hot for Leia if there were plans for her to be his sister. So I don't know if, she even kisses him right on the lips in Empire. So I don't know how much. I think that he had probably a large script, might have been, something like that. But I don't think that he had actual plans. I don't believe that.
No. And I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is he did have ideas that he wanted to make other movies, right? Like he probably had the first script and then he had said, this is, this is going to be bigger than just one idea. Like there's going to be more to this story, but he
hoped.
Yeah.
Fingers were crossed because everybody thought it was going to bomb.
Right.
That's that the head of Fox at the time thought had faith in it, but everybody thought it was going to bomb.
Well, right. And a lot of people are asking, why are you going to make this when it was basically a feature-length version of a serial, the 1930s serial, which wasn't something people in the 1970s were clamoring for, like they weren't like looking for this, but this is exactly what they ended up wanting, the public. They just had nobody knew it yet.
Well, and before that, there was nothing but misery. Even though I love these, the dystopian movies like Logan's Run, Planet of the Apes, Soylent Green, it was all depressing. Everything was absolutely depressing. And then Star Wars comes along and it's just like a breath of fresh air.
Mm-hmm.
Well, also Jaws came around. That was sort of a, not depressing. I mean, I would say that, but that's also the first blockbuster. So, but this was actually, I think this came up before Jaws became the hit,
Well, I'm talking more science fiction, like Logan's Run and stuff like that, where it's even something like, Capricorn 1, where the moon landing is saying that it's all fake and they're trying to kill the astronauts. And it's just, it hit at that exact moment when it should have.
Exactly.
Unrest in the country with Nixon and everything else. We were kind of, Vietnam was over and we kind of were lost. I think these movies started to bring people back together. Just a observation or just a thought, but when people start going to the movies and start thinking about it, I go to the movies to be entertained and just taken out of where I'm at and put in another universe. And this is one of the first movies that really, even though being 5 years old, I knew this was something special. And I could be having a bad day and I go watch Star Wars and it'd be a lot better mood later on,
Yeah. And it's funny. It's gotten to the point where, okay, so I don't know, you guys probably don't like this show at all, but I adore the show How I Met Your Mother. And one of the bits in it talks about how the character Ted loves Star Wars. Like Star Wars is his favorite movie, obviously the first one, is his favorite movie. He watches it, period, all the time, like it's, and basically one of the, his soon to be wife has never seen Star Wars. So which seems a little bit silly because who nowadays hasn't seen Star Wars, but, especially really, well, maybe I would be.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she watches it for the first time and she has a different perspective on it. But, basically she realizes that she'll love it for him, because that's what he loves or whatever. And this movie is something that people grew up watching. It changed their life in some way or another. And they, it makes them feel good. They watch it when they're sick because it's a comfort movie, and I after rewatching it recently, I can see why. Like, absolutely. It has that feel of something that that's just timely, you can watch it at any time in your life. You could be an adult or a kid. It doesn't matter, and
more.
What's that?
Should be watching it more again. This is bringing back some stuff I needed for. It's good. Thank you.
Well, good. And that's why I wanted to bring this up and get this on Film Freaks. And everybody always does Star Wars on reviews. It's a very, very popular film, but it's still one I feel like it should be a lot of people's, top 5 favorite movies sometimes, and I might get there sometime if I watch it enough where it might actually become one of my top 5. The original Star Wars, though a lot of people say Empire Strikes Back is better, and I would disagree.
Yes.
After rewatching it. Yeah, but we can probably get into that another time, maybe, or we can get into, well, I mean,
there's fighting words, Jonathan.
Those are fighting words. I don't know. I think,
yeah,
honestly, yeah. You want to fight, John? I mean,
it's 2 against 1.
Oh, Alfred likes Empire better.
Well, I figured this thing out that works with a lot of these trilogies, and I do call it the Star Wars, I don't know, trilogy formula. That you could look at 3 films and they follow. Star Wars is good, Empire is great, Jedi is okay, and you could look at that as Godfather. Godfather is good, Godfather 2 is great, Godfather 3 is okay. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, same thing. Spider-Man is good. Spider-Man 2 is great.
Spider-Man 3 is okay. Sucks.
But it still follows that thing. You know,
right.
You mentioned Mad Max, not counting the new one, the ones with Mel Gibson. Mad Max is good. Road Warrior is great. Beyond Thunderdome is okay. So all of these trilogies, which is weird, follow the Star Wars way of doing trilogies, which is really weird that, you know, the first one is good, and then they made the second one great, and then they made the third one just okay. Even though I love Jedi, but it's still okay in the context of the trilogy.
Well, yeah, I think also, once again, a lot of it has to do with a lot of people hate the Ewoks, which I think is ridiculous.
Well, they're bad.
Yeah, I mean,
they're bad.
They're just
Lucas wanted to sell toys.
Yeah,
he wanted to sell toys. Harrison Ford is sleepwalking through the movie. He doesn't give a crap. Carrie Fisher allegedly was on cocaine through the entire film, which is why she doesn't remember it, and which is why she kept the way she looked to wear that bikini. And I do thank her for that because she looked amazing in it. But it's by far the weakest. Even the visual effects look bad. They all have like a line around them. It's that time during Lucasfilm that stuff just didn't look good. Like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, it just didn't look good. You know, I don't know if they brought in like a group of new people, but the effects look bad. If you look at something like Star Wars and Empire, when Harrison Ford is standing next to the Falcon, it's a full scale model. But in Jedi, when he's standing next to it, it's a green screen. Well, back then it was a blue screen, but it was in effect. It wasn't him standing next to a full scale model. Right. So everything looked cheap. And but other films follow its format. Scream followed it, you know, where you know, you end the series where it begins. So like Scream 3 ends up back at the house from the first film, kind of like how Star Wars ends up back on the Death Star.
Okay.
So, you know, you can, so I can't fully, you know, criticize Jedi because other trilogies, you know, have used that same format.
Interesting. Okay, so let's get into Star Wars #1, you know, 1977.
A New Hope.
Yeah, I keep not wanting to call it that because it wasn't originally called that. But Alfred, can you sum up this movie at all?
Yes, basically, let's see. Droids meet girl. Girl gives droids package. Droids leave ship. Girl meets Dark Lord. People follow droids. Droids meet Luke Skywalker and Ben, old mage wizard, and then they find out the princess is on the Death Star. They go find gallant gallant scoundrel. They fight a Death Star, rescue the princess. And then the big bad monster's coming to get them, and they send a bunch of planes and boats, and they shoot the monster down, and everyone lives happily ever after.
Perfect. I couldn't say it better myself.
There you go.
pretty much just summed it up right there. So the characters in this film are just, I mean, each person has a character, and it was talked about. I watched the Empire of Dreams documentary, and it was talked about how, I mean, everybody knew. I mean, these were not like new characters, you know, like everybody was a staple of something that's come before in some way. So you got like your, you know, the young boy who's going to become, you know, the victorious hero, right? On a quest to become the hero. You have the scoundrel, as you pointed out, who's just this, basically this jerk, you know, kind of character. But he's, you know, he's a jerk with a heart of gold. I mean, everybody loves Han Solo. And then you've got the princess who can actually, she's in distress, but she's not really in distress. Like she can take care of herself. But
she's a strong character too.
Yeah, she's definitely a strong character. And she wouldn't have needed the guys to rescue her, but they did, which was good. And then you've got Darth Vader, the head of kind of the leader, bad guy character who wasn't the leader. The Emperor was he even mentioned in the first one? I don't think they mentioned the Emperor.
No.
Yeah. So he wasn't.
No, because Tarkin is Vader's commander.
Right.
Exactly.
So it'd probably go Empire, Emperor, Tarkin, and then Vader at that point.
Yeah.
Yep. And I love Tarkin. Peter Cushing just blows me away in that. And I
he is so good.
Yes.
I know you guys don't like the new stuff and everything, but I absolutely loved his little little basically parts in Rogue One.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I liked Rogue One. I don't think it was necessary, just like Solo was not necessary, but they're both fun. I enjoyed both.
Solo kind of pissed me off because they kind of took liberties to different stuff that originally was canon and kind of screwed around with it. And because the Kessel Run, he did it in a different time or something, than what was actually originally said, I believe.
They corrected it because parsecs are not time. That's been criticized many times. So when he says, I made the Kessel Run and I'll make up a number, 42 parsecs, people have commented that's not a time. It's like a measurement. So that's actually incorrect. So I think they corrected it for Solo.
Oh, okay. So that's why they were doing. Okay. All right. Well, I don't know. I just don't. Yeah. Once again, it wasn't necessary, but it was still sort of, fun to me. I don't know. I enjoyed it.
It has moments.
If it were not Han Solo, I think I would have enjoyed it more. Had it been just another character of the Star Wars universe, that did a lot of the stuff. You know what I mean? I think I would have enjoyed it just a little bit more because I feel like there was just this big high kind of thing for Solo. Well,
it's tough because Harrison Ford is Han Solo,
right? But the guy who played him, I forgot his name. Was it Alden or something? The guy who played a Han Solo in the Solo film was pretty. I thought he was okay. He was not Han.
I thought he was fine.
He was. I don't feel like. I'm just glad they didn't de-age Harrison Ford and just try to make him do that. They would probably now, because they're de-aging everybody, But anyway, to go back to
and the thing that I like about Rogue One is the whole thing is that they did the Tarkin thing in there, even though he was animated, but he looked okay. He looked all right, so I appreciate that. And then while watching Star Wars today, at the very beginning, when the ship, when the rebels are waiting for all the stormtroopers to come through the door, I'm visualizing Vader from Rogue One just kicking ass with his lightsaber, walking through, and I'm like, right behind that door, Vader is kicking ass. Yeah.
So, and that was probably the best part of the whole movie for Rogue One anyway. Everybody's seeing what Vader is fucking doing and everything like that. People are just they love, I remember being in the theater and everybody just cheering and applauding, and it was just amazing. So I love that. So, but this movie having the beginning of it like that, I rewatching it, it was fun. It's just fun to kind of go back to see to the beginning,
It's because it's for adults and kids. That's the thing, is as an adult, you still appreciate it. And as a kid, you love it. You want to be Luke Skywalker. But as an adult, you're not having to deal with Ewoks, at least in the first one. The Jedi was kids. It was all kids. And Empire was for adults. And Star Wars is for adults and kids. That's how I would say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You'd say that too, Alfred?
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Yeah. Well,
Even though the stuff with the Empire, with the Emperor was great in Jedi. I love all that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I liked him. I liked him in Empire appearing. I know there was there. If you look at the old, 79, 80, whatever it was, for
80, yeah, 80,
Yeah.
81.
8081 Empire, it was a completely different person. It was a completely different voice, and then he redubbed it and changed it, and because that's what Lucas loves to do. Just go back, and I loved showing you guys that video that had all the different stuff, because if you guys noticed, it was like 77, and then 1997, then there was 2004, 2008, I think 2008, and then 2011. I was like, oh Jesus, like how many different takes and different things, and they just kept changing shit. He just, and to this day I think
It's
they're
crazy.
still changing stuff, because Disney's probably going back in there and changing shit.
Like someone getting plastic surgery in Hollywood. It's like they think they're making it better, but they're getting worse.
Well, yeah, it's just not needed. I mean, I looked at some of those changes going, why do they need more rocks?
I would just like to see a good, clean version of the original print, which he says he doesn't have. He said it's lost. I don't believe that.
I don't believe that because the trilogy that I have is that. And I know people don't like hearing this, but it was a torrent. And I looked, because I refuse to buy the special editions and all that stuff. I just won't do it. So I looked for a torrent, and somebody had it. And I don't know where they got them, but this is probably the purest version of the film out there. I mean, there's no adjustments made to it at all that I could find, watching it this time around too. So it is out there. He just doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Well, why doesn't he want people to see that? I mean, I guess it's like when when you're an artist and you did your original art, you don't, and then you said, oh man, this needs a touch up. You don't want people to see it, or whatever, like the original thing. You want to see what you touched up on, I guess. But I just don't feel like he needed to touch up on it. I mean, it was already a masterpiece, Mm.
Yeah, and I remember when he did the anniversary, I was working at a theater, actually the theater that he partially owns, called the Cinema in Marin County. He owns it with Francis Ford Coppola, and that's where all the big guys would premiere movies. Spielberg would, and all the big movies went to this theater because it had all his sound and everything in it. And that's a lot of those I saw there. And once he changed them the first time, and he removed like the outlines around all the stuff, and he didn't fix things like you said, like instead of 4 X-wings, he added it. He made it 8. It was nothing like that. It was just correcting flaws that you could visually see. And then he went on to do that whole thing, with like the special editions, which was completely unnecessary. It was just horrible.
My dad hates because he loves the original 1977. He's been wondering where to watch the original one. I know there was a VHS, but even the VHS, was that altered at all? The original?
I believe that's the second version that he did. Yeah. So the outlines are removed in that.
Jesus Christ. So not even.
So it's still not the originals.
God damn it. So anyway, he was wondering about that because but like he hates like the cantina scene, with too many freaking characters that were added, and stuff that weren't in the original, that he never remembered those things being there. There might have been a couple, obviously, but it became too weird, and I get it. Like I get what he was doing after, because he created a universe where he wanted to explore all these characters and make toys of them and, other stuff, as like, once again, as Mel Brooks pointed out, merchandising, You know,
Huh.
I
Right.
I love Spaceballs, by the way. And that probably I watched Spaceballs before I watched Star Wars. Once again, that's how old I am. That
Right.
Well, funny thing about that is I worked at a theater called the Fairfax, and it's in Fairfax in Marin County, and we were playing Spaceballs. And one day Lucas walked in, and he was going to pay for the movie, and we're like, dude, you just go in. You're watching a movie that's parroting your films, so just go in. And he went in. 2 hours later, he came out, and we're like, what did you think? And Lucas is a quiet guy, and he goes, it was cute. And he just walked out.
dude, that is awesome. Like, wow. I've always kind of wondered if George Lucas liked Spaceballs, because
Well, now you know. He finds it cute.
see, this is why I'm glad I did this, did this show, because it baffles my mind of like knowing that you even were living, or when I asked you, I just asked you because I knew you had opinions on the original Star Wars and stuff, and your feelings on everything.
Oh, yeah, that's why my feelings are the way that they are. I mean, it's when I was working at the video store, Broadway Video, we had a few different locations, and he came in to set up an account. And my friend didn't work there, but we were both there, big Star Wars fans and all that. And the guy behind the counter, Lucas, walks up and he wants to start an account. And the guy goes, okay, I need to see your ID. And Lucas is like, okay. And then he gives him this driver's license to set up the account. And as he's doing stuff, well, I don't think he asked for the ID first. I think he just said, like, he's typing it in before he got the ID. And he goes, last name? The guy's like, Lucas? And he goes, okay, what is your first name? George? And Lucas is totally confused. Like, he doesn't understand. Like, does this guy not know who I am? And my friend and I are way in the back just dying. Because it's like, dude, do you not know? Like, if you saw Lucas walking down the street, he doesn't look like anybody else.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you just totally know who this guy is. And Lucas was so confused. He was like looking around like, is this guy talking to somebody else? Does he not know who I am?
My only story like that was like I live in Williamsburg, Virginia, and Bruce Hornsby is very much known in this area and everything. And you rented at the video store that I worked at. And so he comes in and he goes to pick up his movies. I didn't know what he looked like, or whatever. And he gives me his key tag, to pull it up, and I pulls up Bruce Hornsby, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, can I see your ID? Like, I still wanted to make sure it was him, because anybody could have taken the ID and whatever. I'm like, okay. And I start talking to him. He's a really nice guy, but like, I didn't know who he was. But if George Lucas walked up to me and said, I'd like to start an account at my video store, I'd be like, Mr. Lucas, step right on up here and just fill out. And then he would get mad at me because everybody got mad at me over the Social Security information, because you had to put down your Social Security, number, and stuff.
Oh, the whole thing?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Which was not I was like, sorry.
Yeah, we just did license number. That was it at our place.
Well, we did license and Social Security. So
Wow.
we were, that was not good. But especially because of people could take those cards, and we wrote them on cards, and everything.
Like the jerk, Mrs. Newsbaum.
Right. Well, anyway, it's just crazy. So yeah, I would have loved to check out. That sounds really bad, but I would love to check out movies to George Lucas. That would be that would have been a dream come true. So I'm kind of envious that guy did that. Sadly, there's none of that stuff anymore. And is that theater even still around?
They were trying to save it because it's a big red building, just a square, and it would only show one movie. And basically, if you were Spielberg, Lucas, Coppola, Scorsese, your film played there. If you were, at the time, Tony Scott, Top Gun played there for months. and it had
Wow.
all of the updated sound for Lucasfilm. So whatever was the most current sound for Lucasfilm, we had it. And they would there'd be premieres, like Goonies premiered there, and like some of the Goonies were there, and they would play the better of the Star Trek films, you know, before the end when they got cheaper. But like Star Trek 4 played there, and they had some of the the guys from Star Trek. So it was, but they were trying to save it, and I don't know if they saved it or not, but it should be a landmark, I think.
I would hope so. Damn, that's just. If it's still there, I'd love to. I would go up there when I go up to California again, and just go up there and see that, you know, see a movie there. Sadly, it's just things are just and COVID, man, COVID's been ruining so many movie theaters and stuff. So I mean, I would just hope that they would be okay, you know, with business not being the greatest and everything. But I guess I'll have to look into that. We'll figure out. I'll figure out more information later about that and whatnot. Get with you about that. So Alfred,
Yeah.
So when you watch this movie, who is your favorite character?
I like Han Solo.
Really, Han? Was there a particular reason or what?
I just like the character. He just was like walking around blasting things, and I was mad because I had blonde hair, so I could never play him when we were kids. So you play blonde hair, you play Luke Skywalker. You have black hair, you play Han Solo.
It's true. That's true. So you always had to be Luke, huh?
Yeah. So yeah, I like Han Solo, and that was my favorite character in the originals. Now I really like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Right. So would if you were bald, would you play C-3PO?
Me?
I mean, I'm saying like if a person didn't have any hair, they play C-3PO.
Probably.
I guess it's better than having
Or
to play,
R2D2, take a pick.
or you know, at least it's not Jabba the Hutt, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. So John, who's your favorite character? Who was your favorite character growing up?
I would probably be on the same side as Alfred. I would probably say as a kid, it'd be Han Solo or Luke, you know, whatever we're doing. But these days when I rewatched it now, I mean, probably, yeah, Ben, you know.
I'll probably agree. I don't know. When I grew up, it was always, I had to be Luke because he was the,
At least you didn't say Leia.
it's true. You know, I always wanted to find a Leia.
Buns.
I always wanted to find a Leia, you know. But that never happened.
The original posters, it looks like a Frank Frazetta picture where it's got Luke there with the abs and pecs and holding the lightsaber, and she's like,
oh yeah,
yeah. It's like crazy.
I actually really like that poster though.
That's a great poster. Yeah,
it is.
The one I picked here, I only picked it because you could kind of see Star Wars more here. If I put on the original posters, which is probably what I'll put on the actual, like when we do this, you know, when I like, you know, for the whatever picture for the main logo or whatever. When I put it up there, it'll probably be the original poster. And the only reason I picked this is because when you do the original poster, the Star Wars label is like on the bottom. And so I haven't figured out how to do, you know, my whatever, my virtual background perfect, you know, and shit. I wish there was a way to like kind of like, you know how Facebook you can change, you know, make it go up or down, center it more or whatever. They don't let you do that in Zoom, I don't think. So you have to pick like ones that, you know, allow you to do that. So like yours is perfect, John, because it's made, you know, like for that particular, you know, for that thing. So that's sort of what the Star Wars one was made, you know, so that it could fit in this kind of box. And the posters themselves are just fantastic. Like the marketing for this film was just awesome, you know.
It's when people cared, you know, about that type of stuff. You know, all the art is amazing. You know, Ralph McQuarrie and all that stuff is amazing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
We're looking at the moment for you get the prints. They sold the 1x14 prints that came with this like little decorative sleeve. You pull them out, and they're just like, "Wow, these are so amazing." Concept art.
Yeah, I owned Star Wars and Empire at the time, so I was a little too old, and I didn't get the Jedi one. But yeah, I used to have them thumbtacked to my wall, and now I'm like, oh, you idiot! Why did you thumb? You should have just kept them.
The same here. I did the same thing.
So you guys, do you have any of your guys' original like merchandise from the movie?
No.
I do.
You do, Alfred?
Yeah.
Nice.
I have an old C-3PO poster, an old Darth Vader poster, most of my figures, and a few other odds and ends.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is.
It sucks because my original set I got in Germany, we were flying back to the States, and we had this paper bag, but that had all my Star Wars figures, my Raggedy Andy, and my G.I. Joe box. I put my Star Wars figures in, and someone lifted it.
Damn.
We get to Frankfurt to get on the hotel. And, where's my bag of stuff? I was like, oh shit, somebody ripped it off. So but then I got replaced them, but it was like, so yeah, I've got several of my old things.
Well, that's a bummer, man. Still it's still cool that you still have some of the old stuff. I mean, it's funny. I don't really have any of my old stuff except I have my pet monster, which has nothing to do with Star Wars, but I'm saying like that's the only thing from my childhood that I still have. Everything else that I do have, like I have like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and everything. I got them years later because I found them and I wanted to have, to keep them for my childhood, to memories of my childhood, but they're back at the studio because I don't, I don't need to keep everything around here.
Right. Yeah, I used to have a bunch of the original stuff, the Falcon, the Death Star, the figures, all of that stuff, mostly from the first two films. And I just got, I think, a little too old to collect a lot of the stuff from Jedi, but I had it all in the box and it was all in storage. And without my knowledge, when my cousin was born, and he became that age, my mom goes, oh, well, maybe he would like to play with these, and gave them to him without me knowing it. And he basically just destroyed them.
Oh, man.
I never got anything back. It was just like, and I freaked out. I like yelled at her for that because I purposely put them in knowing that they might be valuable one day, even though some of them were broken or stickers were peeling or, that type of thing. I thought, they're still original Star Wars figures. Maybe they'll be worth something. And oh, well.
Man, that's kind of those kind of stories kind of bum me out because you see all these people that do keep their shit, and some of the people actually kept their stuff in the freaking boxes and stuff, and I'm like, who the fuck is a kid that like keeps, doesn't play with their action figures or whatever? But I mean,
they play with them in the box, just hopping them along. You got two,
especially if like they're using both lightsabers.
Yeah, just the top of the cardboard is hitting each other.
John, I may abscond with that and use it for one of my comedy sketches.
Oh, please do.
I would love that.
That's actually really good. I would love to see that. You got to put that on YouTube if you do it.
Yeah, if you do it, I would like to see it. I like to see how that works out.
That's a great idea. He's writing it down right now. That. That's hilarious. But it's also sort of like weirdly probably true. I mean, that's the only way I can imagine that kids could have fun with the box, because unless they bought two of them, one to keep in the box and one to like play with. And that would be the only thing I can imagine, because back then nobody thought these things would be worth anything, but maybe somebody thought, keeping them in the box would be, whatever, who knows?
This one lady on Toy Hunter, she had twin boys. And so she bought them all except, and she bought two. She bought one in case the original figures got damaged, you go open the other one. Well, they never damaged the original so much. So she had them all put away in her attic. And they're mint when she pulled them down because she packed them really nice. And she sold them for like $12,500. And then the guy I sold them for like 25 to someone else because they're all the original 12 unopened plus like 2 or 3 of the second set.
25,000. Jesus.
Yeah, one guy.
Nice.
And they did the transaction on a boat. I was like, what the fuck are you thinking?
On a boat where they could get ruined?
Canada or something. It was, or the guy was out of Ohio. They wanted to do the transition on a boat. I'm like, dude, this is like apocalypse waiting to happen.
Well, I don't know if you guys remember this. I mean, Jonathan would definitely be too young, but maybe you've seen the commercials where they didn't know that the toys are going to be so popular. So they came out with the box. And what it is that you would send in one of those coupons from the toys because they only had like 2 or 3 figures out. And so it was a box that you could buy and you would send in the coupon and you would get sent the figures after they were made. There was such a huge demand and each had it was like a 2-row thing where you could put each figure and it was just empty. And like thousands of kids, including myself, got it for Christmas. And you would open it going, oh my God, but it would be empty. You couldn't play with anything because the toys weren't even made yet.
Yeah. Wow.
That's how in demand it was.
Well, we were in Germany. I sent out for this like little stand. You put the original 12 figures on and had these like little things. You put them in the pegs so they'd stand up and then you could like move them by moving these little switches on the base of the gray thing. And then it had like a background like a Death Star. It was pretty wild, but we waited like 6 months for that thing to get over to Germany. I was like, man, is this thing ever going to come?
Yeah. You're 25 when it comes, when it finally gets there.
I went to leave for the States. Germany was unified when it finally came.
Well, and they did the same type of thing with Boba Fett. Before Empire Strikes Back came out, if you bought a certain amount of Star Wars toys, you would send in like the little certificate on the back of the box. So you had to open it and cut it out. You would mail it in and then be sent Boba Fett from the new Star Wars movie that wasn't even released yet. I remember when Jar Jar Binks came out, they did the same type of thing. I even bought that, not knowing who really Jar Jar Binks even was. I just saw it for the trailer. But like everybody rushed to like Toys R Us to buy that brand new first Star Wars figure, from the new series. They just don't do that stuff anymore.
One of the last Sendaways I did was for Mace Windu. They had one for him, and I sent off for that. And that was like in the, like the early 2000s, like when there was starting figures come out for those movies. And I remember sending away for that. But that was the last one I sent away for.
I used to have, and I don't know if I still do, and I'm a little worried about having it, but there was these like soda cans. That they had for the new Star Wars movies and stuff, the Phantom Menace and whatnot. So they had like a Mace Windu. It was a Pepsi. Yeah, it was Pepsi products. And I don't drink Pepsi anyway, but I collected them for the pictures on the front. And I remember having them because even though I was not a huge Star Wars fan, I did watch the prequels. I was at that time going, all right, this is when I was starting to, I guess, kind of finally get into Star Wars in some way or another, which once again, kind of a bad thing to kind of get into with the prequels. But I watched, I collected like Mace Windu. I had Liam Neeson, Qui-Gon Jinn. I had Obi-Wan and Anakin, I believe. And so I had all 4 of those, but I don't know where they are, and I don't know, whatever. I don't know if I still have them somewhere. They're probably
one of your relatives found them in a box and went, "Oh, Pepsi."
They weren't looking too good when I last saw them. I don't think anybody would want to even try that.
So thirsty. I'm going to open up this collectible soda.
It was not
a little
looking
parched.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So it was weird. But like that was what it was. Like Lucas was the first person to really realize that shit was going into like toys. World was going into toys. Somebody said, and I don't know if this is true or not, originally, before he got into film, he wanted to be an architect. Now that, sounds a little off, but if that's true, it kind of makes sense where he designs everything sort of, or at least later he started to really design this whole universe, But
I could believe that. Watch American Graffiti. It's his life. That was shot in San Rafael, and I used to go down to that street all the time.
Wow.
So that's 4th Street in San Rafael, and they just blocked off like 4 blocks, and they just drove back and forth on it. So American Graffiti is George Lucas as a teenager, because he used to live in San Mateo, and you could drive down 4th Street, and a lot of the places that he filmed are still there. Mel's Diner was a set, I believe. Even though there is one in San Francisco that I think he might have just done exterior shots from, just like establishing, but all the interaction and all that I think was a set. But
I think I saw one in LA. Now I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a franchise.
Okay.
But this was all shot in like THX 1138 is shot in I want to say San Rafael. Oh God, I'm blanking on the building. Oh crap! But it's shot. You can see it right by the freeway. The Gattaca was shot there, and I'm blanking on the name of the building, but it's right off the freeway. So he shot all over Marin County, and he got into like a bad car accident because he used to be one of those guys like in American Graffiti, and that changed his life. So whatever he wanted to be before the car accident changed after the car accident, and that's when he became like really quiet. When he was louder and more aggressive before that. So there's a great documentary. I wish I could find it. I wish I knew the name of it. It was an independently made one about him in Marin County. And I found it at just at a video store one day, and I rented it. It was great. It was like an hour, and it talked about kind of like the dark side of George Lucas and why he is the way that he is and why his films are the way that they are. Especially his earlier ones. It was fascinating. And that's when they talk about the car accident and how it changed his life. And
if you had a title for it, maybe we can look it up on YouTube and see if that's
I just don't remember it. I have no idea. Yeah.
Maybe if you look on YouTube, the dark side of George Lucas, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. So,
that's what I love about YouTube.
No, it's not the Civic Center. Damn it. Well, it's wherever they shot Gattaca. So we'll have the name for that. Frank Lloyd Wright was the designer of the building. It's a famous building. Yeah.
Well, definitely.
Guggenheim?
What's that?
That's not the Guggenheim, is it?
No, it's also a jail.
Wow.
But they shot THX there. So a lot of those long hallways, a lot of it was also shot in San Francisco.
Okay.
But it's God, I'm blanking on the name of it. It's so weird, but Civic Center is right behind it. But yeah, so it's if I think of it, I'll let you know.
All right. Well, thank you.
Sure.
I'm excited. Because I absolutely loved all of this, all the stuff that George Lucas has made from just his ideas, like him coming up originally with, THX, and then later he did American Graffiti as just from what I've understood was just Francis Ford Coppola challenging him. Like, you can't do a silly comedy. He was like, hell, I can. Challenge accepted. He made he made that movie, and it became a hit. And then it brought him to the chance to do this. And, and this became the biggest hit that he's ever done, nobody's talking about American Graffiti the way they talk about Star Wars, There was a sequel to American Graffiti, if I'm correct, though. Right?
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah.
It's called More
American Graffiti. Yeah. It's a really hateful film, which is weird. I rewatched it a few months ago because I got like that double feature of both of them. And it's just miserable. Everybody in it is miserable. It's just one of those films where it's like, God, why was this even made? What was the point?
What's funny is the original writers of American Graffiti also wrote Howard the Duck.
Huh. Yes, and they also wrote Best Defense with Eddie Murphy and Dudley Moore. So that says something right there too.
I've seen that one.
Well, I've never seen that one. Is that any good or bad?
Best Defense, it's awful.
Okay. Well, it
Yeah,
sounds
that's Howard the Duck theater. So that was all.
Oh no, it is.
Yes.
Yeah, THX and all that stuff was shot at the Marin County Civic Center in San Francisco. So that is, I'm sorry, in San Rafael. So I did get the name right.
Oh,
okay,
cool.
So yeah, Frank Lloyd Wright.
Definitely, I'll have to look more into that stuff. Like, I love that.
Watch his early stuff. You see a ton of the Bay Area in there. San Francisco, Marin County. You see everything. Santa Rosa. It's just, you really learn a lot about who he was as a filmmaker at an early age, just with like his first 3 or 4 movies.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, he's just one of those filmmakers that you like. A lot of people don't like, even though he's very popular, a lot of people just don't talk about a lot of what he's doing, like that much anymore, his Star Wars themselves obviously, have like their own thing, but like nobody, I don't really hear anybody talk about American Graffiti. I don't hear anybody talk about some of the other stuff that he's done, like THX as much, or whatever. I guess Star Wars overshadowed it.
Yeah. But without those movies, he wouldn't have had Star Wars. So
right.
That's true.
He got Star Wars, he was able to make it because American Graffiti was a hit. Everybody thought it was going to be a bomb because THX was a bomb. And then they thought American Graffiti was going to be a bomb. And it wasn't. It was a huge hit.
Well, it's also funny that, Warner Brothers did THX, and they also did, or distributed THX, and they started fucking around with it and everything. He hated that. Then American Graffiti, same thing, same company. So he pitched Star Wars to Universal and what's the other one of the other companies, and then it was Fox that took the chance because Alan Ladd Jr. saw something in him as a person. Didn't see anything in the film, thought the film was going to flop, but at least gave respect to talented George Lucas.
Well, and that's what you need, because they, the same thing happened with Spielberg and Jaws.
What do you think? Okay, so this will be how we'll close because it's been a little over an hour. I want to know what you guys think and feel about the way Hollywood is right now, and what could they do differently, that because this was the time that things did shake up. It did get, like, we had Spielberg, we had Lucas, we had, all of them come in and they kind of shook everything up, and things got Francis Ford Coppola. Everybody was doing these amazing films. John Milius, Brian De Palma. I mean, look at the amazing names. And sadly, you look at Spielberg now with, West Side Story, which I've heard is actually a pretty decent movie, but like just didn't have the appeal that it should have. It should have had. What do you think? What do you think Hollywood would need to do now? And obviously, we can't control that, But what do you guys, John, first, because you're a filmmaker, as well. You know this stuff. What do you think Hollywood should do differently that could bring back what was so wonderful about these other old filmmakers?
Films pretty much died right after 1970. You're not going to get the Coppolas, the Spielbergs, the Scorseses. You're not going to get them anymore. Bob Rafelson, you're not going to get the Dennis Hoppers. You're not going to get any of them anymore. We did have some great filmmakers in the 80s, but a lot of them started at the end of the 70s, someone like James Cameron. But I don't think that there's a lot of hope for Hollywood right now. I think that Hollywood it's all about cancel culture. It's all about being woke. I'm just now reading how they're with the new Flash movie, Flashpoint. They're completely going backwards and removing Superman and removing Batman. And it's now all going to be Batgirl and Supergirl. And it's just it's too woke, and all these things are going to bomb. That's why these movies suck, because it's just, they're not, even the prequels, Star Wars is its own thing. You couldn't compare it to anything. Then you came out with the prequels, which you could compare to Star Wars. So a lot of people thought those sucked. But then the sequels come out, which now you can compare these to the prequels, and they make the prequels as good as the originals because these are so poorly done. And Rey is such a Mary Jane that you get nothing from these films. They're soulless. And that's how most of the things of Hollywood are. But you do have filmmakers like Mike Flanagan and some of these other people that are great filmmakers that are being completely overlooked. And or their films bomb, like Dr. Sleep, how that bombed, and it shouldn't have. So I don't have a lot of hope, especially if Hollywood keeps doing what it's doing. The new Black Christmas sucked. Charlie's Angels sucked. It's all about destroying Hollywood and not giving the public what they want. So I don't see it anymore. I just don't think. I don't know. I mean, all things have to come to an end, and maybe at some point it will just end. So yeah.
Interesting.
I just yeah.
I'm obviously I'm a big Marvel fan. So, and I'm a big, we've talked about this a million of times, but, what is it? I feel like Spider-Man No Way Home, though flawed, we've discussed that too, has its flaws, I think is an amazing movie. And, I feel like a lot of what the Marvel itself does, is amazing in Hollywood, and they aren't, that doesn't seem to be about cancel culture or being woke necessarily. I don't think so. I think that there might be a couple.
Marvel.
Yeah, but then you saw how bad it did. So they all of a sudden it's almost like Marvel doesn't even talk about that anymore. They don't, you know what I mean? Like they realize, okay, that messed up. They're still giving girls chances to be superheroes, but they're not really making it all about that. They got Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which directed by Sam Raimi, who's a fantastic director. I wish they would get John Carpenter to come back and really actually direct something, like whatever. But anyway, what about you, Alfred? Do you think do you have any ideas of what Hollywood could do differently that could make them get back to where they used to be?
A movie, or it was more like a documentary I really liked, opened my eyes to what Hollywood was like. And there was the one about John Milius. It was talking about his life and interacting with Spielberg and for Coppola and all. It was a wild time, and people could create and do what they want. And I think the producers of the movies are sticking their hands in everything and not letting people have their art. And I think if they would relinquish their stuff and because people, there's awesome, amazing stuff on YouTube. It's putting stuff in Hollywood to shame. I'm just like, wow, it's just like these little short films or little indie films that these people are just doing their own publishing. I think YouTube and that type of stuff and Netflix are going to start bankrupting the big stuff if they don't get their shit together. Because I really think that the producers need to get out of the way. The directors have a vision, and the writers and the because there's so many movies out there that I got this wicked concept for this special effect. We're gonna have the moon crash on Earth. What about a story? Well, we don't care about the story. It's just going to look good. I think I've been watching some movies that they're not the greatest production value, but their acting and their stories are solid. And I think if the producers got out of the way of the artists, we'd have a lot better cinema and not have an agenda. It's like one of my friends, this is that you're getting off the message. It's like, I go to movies to get away from all the shit that's going on in the world. I don't want to be preached to at the movies. If I want to be preached to in a movie, I know where to go. But if I want to just go and get lost in an adventure like Star Wars, it's very hard today, because movies were magical when I was growing up, and I think that magic is left to profit. It's like to profit and profit. Just how much can we make? Instead of, hey, this is going to be a good movie. And I know you got to have some risk and some investment, but, just looking at where those movies came from and where we go, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, I feel like sometimes when a company like Universal or whatever takes a chance on something, and they're like, oh, let's try this. This is different. This hasn't been done, but they're still like worried that people aren't going to go see it because it's not Star Wars. It's not something that already has a, something behind it, has an audience already. This is the problem with what Hollywood's doing with like TikTok, TikTok right now is the thing, and those actors on TikTok are getting famous, and I'm like, all they do is sing in front of a lip sync in front of a thing. They're not actors, they can't play. And then they say, okay, let's make this person a star because they have 2 billion followers.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. That's not how it should be. It should be talent, and it should be all this stuff. But Hollywood only worries really about, what has done well before, because they know that, they can. And then things like Charlie's Angels, which they thought was a big thing, bombs because it was garbage, and it was absolute garbage. And it was absolute garbage because they tried something, they did the woke thing. They tried something, whatever with the character.
Well, it's man hating. That's what it is. And I don't mean to get all political, and I'm not on the right. I mean, I'm on the left. I'm a Democrat. So, but I felt insulted by Charlie's Angels, and I felt insulted by the new Black Christmas. And, not all men want to rape women. Not all men, do these things. And that's what they say. They take all men and put them into one thing and then say, this is what they do, and it's like, who do people have to look up to? Like with the original Star Wars, at least men could look up to Luke Skywalker. He was just a farm kid who went off on this, and look what happened to him by the end of Jedi. I mean, that one shot in Star Wars of him walking out and looking at those 2 suns with the music swirling summed up everything in that entire film. And you knew that he was just this dumb hick farm boy, would go into town to pick up, some power converters. And then he became this Jedi Knight by the end of the film. What does Rey do? Rey does nothing. She's a blank nothing. She's just like a stiff piece of wood. Like she's a 2x4. She's a Mary Jane who was perfect from the beginning, and she was perfect at the end. And then she stole the Skywalker name, that she rightly did not deserve because she had no journey. And that's the way Hollywood is these days. We're just going to make these people perfect. And how many women look up to Rey? They don't look up to Rey. Nobody looks up to Rey. It's a horrible character. She's one of the worst characters in the whole Star Wars series.
Right. Absolutely. I 100% agree. I don't know. I find all of these movies now. I own, because I got it for Christmas, The Rise of Skywalker, which on 4K, obviously I want all of them on 4K in a collection, even if I'm probably not going to watch it much, it's just, I'm a collection guy. If I have one, I have to have them all,
Sure.
kind of thing.
Me too.
And so, I mean, even if I'm not going to watch it, I still want to have it. But that's one of the things I probably, I like, it's my least favorite of the new ones. And I'm hoping that at some point things start changing. Now, here's the thing. We don't ever go backwards in time, right? We're not going to go back to the 80s. We're going to have, we're going to have nostalgia, but we're never going to go back to that time, right? We're only going to move forward. The thing is, what we're going to move forward to is going to be different than what's happening right now. Hopefully what happens in the future will be people standing up and saying, we need to get rid of what's going on right now, change it, and make something new. And I'm hoping that's what happens with Hollywood. I hope that things start kind of developing, people start, changing their behavior, and it becomes this thing of like, let's start something new. Let's start trusting that these people know what the fuck they're doing and create something completely different than what we've been doing. Maybe that'll happen.
I agree.
I would like for that to happen, but I don't think it will. It has to take something huge. I mean, I now don't care who plays Batman. I just don't care. Right. There have been so many people playing Batman. I just don't give a shit anymore. Mm-hmm. And so when I heard about Flashpoint and them getting rid of Batman, and you have, Henry Cavill saying, "Oh, I would love to come back as Superman." I'm like, no. Now it's going to be Supergirl and
wait, what?
Everything with, yeah.
I know the new Flash. No, I know you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
The new Flash movie is going to have Batman though, right? Like, because that's what they've already done. That's
the Michael Keaton will be the teacher of Batgirl, who will then take over as Batman. The whole idea is that the past will be erased with Flashpoint. So Batman will like technically not exist type of thing. That Superman, it will not exist. And this is what I've read. So I sent you that one thing about 25%. It's from that same source.
okay.
And they've been pretty much dead on and with stuff. And so that's from what I understand. They even have pictures out of what Batgirl looks like and Supergirl looks like. And they're erasing anything that dealt with men, and they're going to put women. I'm fine with that because it's the Justice League. They could switch characters whenever they want, but it's how they do it. Just like Doctor Who. I have not watched Doctor Who since there's been a female Doctor Who. I will not. And I've watched Doctor Who since the early 80s on. I've been a dedicated fan. And it's all in how they did it. I just won't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jodie Whittaker is horrible. She sucks. She even said that she wasn't a fan. She's horrible.
Johnson, he isn't a fan. Kristen Whittaker, she's not a fan of Doctor Who. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, none of it's all done for political reasons. It's all done for these ideology reasons. It's all done for the Kathleen Kennedy, all this type of stuff that have some sort of agenda. And if you want to make Doctor Who a woman, fine. Stop the current Doctor Who, give it a couple years, and then make Doctor Who a woman. Start from episode 1. And then all the Doctor Who's can be women after that. That's fine.
Right.
But don't retcon everything for the last 50 years that Doctor Who has done because of one person. And that's what they seem to be doing with Star Wars, with comic book films, with everything.
I will say though,
and that's my biggest problem.
I know you're not a really big fan of Disney at all. Like you just don't like what they're doing, and you probably never have really. I love the Disney Plus, like Mandalorian, and I just watched the second episode of Book of Boba Fett. I love it. Like I absolutely adore this stuff. I think Dave Filoni, God, I almost said Fellini. That's a different director altogether. Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, are doing wonderful things. Kathleen Kennedy's name's on there, but I don't think she has much to do with that. She's kind of letting them do their own thing. On it. It's just
Jonathan. I really like those.
What?
I'm a fan of the Mandalorian, except when they got rid of Gina Carano. I got kind of the case of the ass with that, but I'm still a fan of.
That's all Kathleen Kennedy.
Sorry, now you're messing up on names. We're both messing up on names. You're calling Kathleen Turner. I'm saying,
but that's the thing is Favreau has always been a fan,
right?
So unfortunately, I missed this by 1 year. My friends, when they were down in LA, they hung out with Favreau. They hung out with a bunch of these guys. And what's his face in Swingers too. I'm liking Vince Vaughn. They hung out with them. Yeah, it was Noah Wiley. They hung out with all of them right when they hit. And so these guys were movie fans. They were actors. They were movie fans. They knew about movies. They wanted to make movies. And a lot of this stuff, because I was still up in Marin County, I was being told, from my friends that were hanging out with them. And I'm like, man, I wish I was down there. But I learned all these stories about them, all these kind of behind the scenes and how much they loved being in films and making movies and all that, and how much they're fans of films. Kathleen Kennedy is not.
Yeah.
So, that's why Mandalorian is so good, is because Favreau knows what he's doing. That's why Iron Man was so good, was because he knows what he's doing. And Kathleen Kennedy even said, there's a video of her saying, there is no source material for Star Wars, so we have to come up with it on our own. She had no idea a book existed, that anything existed.
Like, there's been existed for years, before.
She said there's no source material.
Oh my goodness.
I heard George Lucas gave him a draft for his sequel trilogy that all they had to do was fall in and follow that, and that would have been good.
That was the deal, is that it was supposed to be that those treatments that Lucas gave along with, and Kathleen Kennedy was supposed to usher those in. She was supposed to, that's what she was going to do. And they screwed Lucas over, and they kept bits and pieces of each treatment and put them into each film. But overall, Kennedy has her own agenda, and it's a political agenda, and it's a woke agenda. And so she did it her ways. That's why Rian Johnson made The Last Jedi. And she fired everybody else because he followed her political agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Which
and that's why it's so
'cause,
different.
Yeah, because if you look at like Knives Out and other stuff he's done, he's such a better.
Good. He's done some great
movies. Like, and this movie definitely did not feel like, technically to me, did not feel like Rian Johnson, and so I'm kind of sad. Like he did a fantastic episode, which I was, me, it's one of my least favorite, but everybody loves it and it's fantastic in what it did. But Breaking Bad, like he did an amazing episode of that. Like he's a great filmmaker, but sadly, you're right. He just followed, it was a cut and paste of what Kathleen Kennedy wanted.
Everything that J.J. Abrams set up in The Force Awakens, which was not horrible, but it wasn't good, he destroyed in Jedi, which is why J.J. Abrams had to fix it in Rise of Skywalker, which is why none of the films match. They make no sense whatsoever. Right. They're horribly written.
You watch them back to back. I did, by the way, watch them back to back, and it was just such a strange, like they don't feel like they're connected just by the characters. Like it's, weird. Yeah.
An Italian Herbie is like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah, which is, and you can actually see if you look at the box office for each of these. Of course, Force Awakens made a huge amount of money, but Last Jedi made less, and then Rise made less than Jedi. Each film should have made more money than the previous one. They still made over $1 billion, but still each one made less. And that tells you something.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
he said one good thing. He said that people who did those movies should be charged for movie malpractice for not having Luke, Leia, and Han in the same scene.
Exactly.
Well, they missed out completely. I think that had to be a money thing because because
because when they were shooting Last Jedi, Carrie Fisher died.
Mm-hmm.
So she died before this was finished. And they still had her do the Force thing with flying in outer space. So knowing that she died and doing the Force thing really screwed J.J. Abrams for Rise. So he had to make up like, well, shit, we have to somehow conclude with her. So instead, Rian Johnson just said, screw you, instead of having her die in space. They could have done something kind of like a Paul Walker type of thing, maybe, where she does die. And then they just, she just wouldn't be in the third film and they could give her some sort of good send off. But Rian Johnson's like, screw you. I'm just going to keep her in this movie and you're going to have to fix it in the third one.
And they had to figure out, they had to find because I think they had filmed some stuff for the last one enough where they could,
Yeah, it's deleted footage. That's why it doesn't match.
Yeah.
It's deleted footage from Last Jedi.
Then when they killed Admiral Akbar, I was like, fuck, this sucks. Because they were like, I really thought he would be better. And the guy who played him was actually, I heard he was kind of pissed off at how they treated him.
Well, yeah, because in Kathleen Kennedy's eyes, you want to get rid of the original. You only want to keep the new, which is why when they did that attraction at Disneyland, she only wanted it to be new Star Wars. So basically everything from Force Awakens forward. She did not want to do anything backwards. So if she could kill Han, which she did, if she could kill Luke, which she did, and she did, and then, of course, they killed Leia. So if you could just get rid of all these characters, then she would have a whole Star Wars thing on her own, because originally that Star Wars attraction was meant to be old Star Wars. And she said no.
Oh, wow.
And they made it new Star Wars, which nobody wants. There's a huge agenda here. This is why, when Jonathan said, John, I know you don't like Disney and stuff. These are my huge issues. These are my problems. And it's basically one person.
Oh, man. And there was a little slimmer of hope when, and it wasn't A New Hope. There was a little slimmer of hope where there was, that Kathleen Kennedy was going to be done. She was done her term. And so she was now back. And I was like, this is your time to get rid of her. Like what is wrong?
Yeah, they re-signed her for, I think it's 5 years, between 3 to 5 years.
Stop, just get rid of her, like fire her. Like we don't.
The rumor is, and I believe this, she fired, Gina Carano, because of Rey. So Gina Carano was so much more liked, and people were buying figures. She was so much more popular than Rey, that all Gina needed to do was make some sort of racist comment or some stupid comment, politically, and then she got rid of her. So that was her excuse. But the rumor is nobody likes Rey. The figures weren't selling of Rey. Nobody cared about Rey. Nobody wanted Rey to come back, but they wanted Gina Carano to stay and get her own show, which she was supposed to. But because she had made those statements, which was stupid of her to do, that Kathleen Kennedy's like, boom, nailed it. Now I can get rid of her because she's, talking poorly about the gay community or something. And they did, and now she's like a full-on Trump supporting conservative, hanging out with Ben Shapiro, because of that. So it's all of this stuff is petty, and it's all Kathleen Kennedy, who's just a glorified secretary, and I bet her coffee even sucked. So I can't stand her. And yeah.
Well, that's funny. And you know what? The biggest freaking thing is like Ahsoka Tano. They're making, her movie or her show for Disney Plus, and that keeps getting pushed back for things or whatever. And I'm wondering, a lot of that has to do with the fact that Ahsoka is, is bigger than Rey. That's a character that people care more about. And she's, I wonder if a lot of that is Kathleen Kennedy just not wanting her on there, as what I mean? Like,
I think so. I think she still has a lot to do with stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, coronavirus and all that stuff has a lot to do with it. And
yeah, because last year people were so disappointed by lack of Star Wars stuff going on. And I think a lot of that has to do with like arguments or whatever behind the scenes of not being able to get things done or whatever, or get their order right. But this year, 2022, there's a lot happening with Star Wars on Disney Plus. So hopefully people will start, Book of Boba Fett just started. I'm hoping more and more things start developing, We'll see.
And it's also like Bob Chapek is gone, and it's kind of like who's ever running the show at that time is the one that I'm blanking on his name, but the guy who's running the show now is all about products. So if Boba Fett sells, you're going to have a Boba Fett show. If this character sells, then you're going to have that show. So he's all about merchandising.
Merchandising. All right. Well, I think that's the perfect way to end it on note and everything. Bring it back to Star Wars, which the thing we were talking about, the original Star Wars movie, aka A New Hope, which I don't know. Alfred, do you like that title at all, or what?
I like it better than some of the new ones.
That's true. That's true.
My vernacular Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. That's how I talk about it. I never say I'm watching A New Hope tonight. I say I'm watching Star Wars tonight. That's how I roll.
That's how most people should roll. So I like that.
But I guess if you have to do episodes, since it's part 4, I guess you have to put a name on it.
Yeah.
If you've
Because
got
it's
them
not
lined up
part
on
one.
your shelf.
Yeah.
I mean, it just can't say Star Wars Episode 4 and the other ones all have names it says. And kind of like what Lucas did with Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Right.
The film itself is still called Raiders of the Lost Ark, but he wanted it alphabetically to be all together.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So there you go. So Episode 4, A New Hope.
What is your preferred order? What do you think the definitive order of watching the movies is?
For just the original or all of them?
All of them. Would you put them in order you watched them, or order of they were released, or
of when they're supposed to take place? So I would say watch the prequels first, and then I would say watch them twice. Actually, if you're a fan, prequels first, then original, then if you have to, the Disney sequels, and then maybe go back and watch them in the way that they were made. Because that's a pretty big deal, in the prequels when Obi-Wan meets Anakin. Yeah. And we all laugh at that because we knew what happened in the classic ones. So yeah, kind of difficult actually. I'm not really sure. I'd probably do both. So what about you?
I'm kind of a classical person. I'd go how I saw them. But I mean, I think I would like to go through. I would go through the way I saw them, and then I'd like to go through in order. I haven't sit down and watch them all the way through in order. I've seen them all, but I haven't really sat down and done the whole complete saga just one after the other. I think that maybe someone will do this there.
When I was in LA, I went on Disney Plus and I did the every night I would do a new Star Wars movie or whatever for like I don't know how many days or whatever it was, 9 days or 11 days, I guess it was, because I did it from the original first 1, 2, 3, to not the original 1, 2, 3, but the prequels 1, 2, 3. Then I did Solo, then I did Rogue One, and then I did 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, 9. And so there you go, like 11 movies. But honestly, it was kind of fun, like it did work together, except I don't even know if I finished Rise of Skywalker or not. It's just like I don't know. It's just after a while it gets kind of boring. That one specific one, but
well, and I think you kind of have to go both ways. I would change my thing, and I would say I would watch them originally how they came out, and then go back and maybe watch them kind of in order of time, because it's funny because you always, people go, why does the Death Star have such a dumb way of blowing up? Like, why would that vent even be there? Mm-hmm. And then you find out in Rogue One, that they put it in. But I think if you watch Rogue One first and then go into Star Wars, I don't know, it kind of ruins it in a way. It's not as funny. Mm-hmm. But if you watch the original Star Wars first, then you watch Rogue One, you're kind of like, that's funny. They address it.
Well, that's great. It's a good way to end it on. We gotta finish this up, but thank you guys so much for this.
Thank you,
Sean. Just the knowledge that you had about Lucas himself.
Awesome.
We were. I mean, I can't speak for Alfred personally, and I'm sure you can say it, but I love that, like, absolutely.
Thank you.
I did not know that and stuff. And when when I asked you, it was more because I knew you loved the original movie, the original trilogy, and so having you on the show was awesome. Alfred,
glad to be here.
Yes, Alfred, thank you so much. You're always on. Well, we're gonna get you on more Film Freaks episodes when we can. We'll try to get you in the studio at some point. Come on, we need to get you out there for that. So Paul's been begging to get everybody out here, but it's just tough. The variant out there is pretty nasty, and it's just right now, even with everybody being vaxxed and even being boosted, it's just still there's still the chance. So it's harder to get people to agree to come out, and it's easier to do Zoom. And but I would love to have you guys out. John, I next year sometime I'll definitely be coming back out to California, so if I can make it swing it up to Las Vegas, or you can come out to California or something, we'll work something out.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you guys so much. Everybody tune in next month for another episode of Film Freaks TV. Thank you guys.
Yay,
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.